Spanish is the most spoken language in the West. Thanks to following Iberians, the English spread their illogical, inconsistent language. Spanish is romantic. English is whatever. In most of the world, English is not important for the majority. I said this before, but it's worth repeating for clarification. I teach English in Asia thanks to British followers of Iberians, and I see a rise of Chinese schools and demand for Mandarin, which makes me happy. I plan to learn it too. And this is a photo in Yemen. It's on the rise even there. Oh, look at that. China is beating the United States in economy. Ah, boo-hoo. The Anglo-German heyday is over. To mock Spain as less rich now would be as stupid as mocking Greece for being poor now. Alexander began first, so his decline first is unremarkable. Spain began before Britain, so Spain reached its peak first. And that means naturally declined first. This is typical, not always the case. Not always is the case. England began before the US, so England had its peak first. And that means naturally declined first. Spain had a head start of a generation or so. Brits were irrelevant outside of their locality at that time. Columbus left Castilla in 1492. In 1578, Elizabeth told this guy to go over there.
Let's talk about today's Spain, the EU prosperous powerhouse. Let's talk about how mighty empire turned into a largely irrelevant country.
You're historically illiterate, since every country declines from glory and you ignore a context of chronology, which is that Spain had its heyday earlier, so of course it is in decline for longer. The decline of the ugly nation will continue, and Portugal is a joke. Do you also make fun of Macedon for being poorer than Spain? No, because you're a hypocrite. I mean, the Macedonian Empire has been in decline for longer, so that's why. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. But you can't reason adequately because you're blinded by your hatred and envy of my people. I understand, Lusitanian.
How many ex-British colonies are now first world countries? Nearly all of them. How many ex-Spanish colonies are now first world countries? None.
How many ex-Macedonian lands are now first world? None. So Alexander the Great was a loser? Nope. You are the one who lost. You are the loser, you washo.
Haha, you're old. The baby is superior to you. Haha. You're too weak to keep up with the baby, you old hag. Because the baby has more energy than you. Guffaw.
Mocking Spain as less rich today is historically illiterate. This is not to scale. It's just for the gist of it. Brits need to be acquainted with chronology. Earlier to get glory means more likely to be earlier to lose it.
Nah, the Spanish began at the same time as the Brits. History began when Britain became relevant.
That's how these willfully ignorant, narcissistic Brits act. As a Dutchman, I can confidently say that those guys are amateurs at dealing with the water. Those Venetians. As a Spaniard, I need a magnifying glass to find the Dutch Empire. They have very big bank accounts nowadays. You should look there. Is the bank next to Mosque A, or behind Mosque B, or in front of Mosque C? Dutch people then, Dutch people now. Says the guy whose country was Muslim in the Malaysians, and we pay for your economic fail, so maybe you should do something about that before wailing about a long-gone empire, which you guys totally mismanaged, by the way. You took only the valuables, but didn't develop it whatsoever. I guess that's why you lost the century before all the other countries did. Not that I think that building an empire was a good idea to begin with for any country, but it was too good to burn to let go. So ignorant. Spain didn't exist until the Muslims were almost totally kicked out. Northwest Europe is rich because you followed Iberian trailblazers to glory, ingrate. Also, a divided Gothic Spain was and is right next to Africa, so it's not remarkable, as I covered earlier, that the huge Mohammedan empire took over. What's remarkable is that Netherlands imports Islam to destroy itself. You went full retard, man. Never go full retard. You think you have a point when someone who starts a race earlier finishes earlier? Do you also laugh at Alexander's empire falling earlier? You're a hypocrite. Logic isn't in your arsenal. Dutchman whose language is German without the power. Spanish is Latin without the power, but at least it's romantic. Your language sounds like shit. In many cases, not all. English is so dominant over your language, you should stop calling yourselves Dutch. Dutch is dying. Why don't the Dutch care? Look at this. They have no self-respect, the Dutch. Pathetic. Not sure if speaking Dutch or just bad English. Anytime the English see a Dutch colony, I'm sorry, Dutch, it's time for you to leave. When expats go to Netherlands, the Dutch tend to immediately switch to English. Spanish is the most spoken language in the Western Hemisphere. Chinese in the Eastern. Deus vult. What is Dutch in comparison? Didn't develop it whatsoever is a lie. Spain built more cities and roads than Rome did. Just look at the size of the Roman Empire at its zenith. It fits many times in the Spanish lake, let alone the entire Spanish Empire in its zenith during the Iberian Union, which consisted of not just the Spanish parts, but also the Portuguese parts that became Spanish. Spain also built universities, and Spain abolished cannibalism and human sacrifice. Spain did a lot of good. And the Native Americans were allowed into the universities, so they were a minority, because it was about wealth, the caste system. Also, they taught in Spanish, and not all natives learned Spanish very quickly in the beginning. It took a while for that to happen. By the next generation, they got Spanish cracking. Spain established the Pax Hispanica when prior natives were raping each other's women. Spain began true globalization of all inhabited continents. Not Portugal. Portugal didn't have America until Spain got it, and then they were like, oh man, we better go west before they get everything there. Spain discovered Hawaii, not the Brits, as already proved in this series. Spain went around the world when you were totally irrelevant, lol. I originally laughed out loud when I typed that. Jan Visser said, we pay for your economic fails, not that I think that building an empire was a good idea to begin with. What a liberal hypocrite, boasts in the richness of his country, then shames his country for imperialism that led to its rich status. Make up your mind. Is the wealth from empire good or not? Can't have both. Compare the spare income of the average Spanish to any Dutch and start crying. Morality is better than money, but you are a materialist who won't understand this until you start crying in the afterlife. Who cares? You didn't take part in any of that. You clearly care since you're whining about it. People treat mine with contempt because of lies and slander against Spaniards most people believe due to gullibility and lack of critical thinking. I am passionate about defending my people just as you would be if you had self-respect for yours. In Asia, I met a Habsburg from Texas who is a jerk. Asians liked my Spanish conquistador photos, so he envied me. He then said out of the blue that the Spanish just piggybacked on the Portuguese. Later I told him the Germans just piggybacked on the English Industrial Revolution. He was taken aback and admitted it. I never said anything against his people, but he shat on mine. Dumb German, dumb Austrian, dumb Texan, dumb Gringo, idiot. By the way, Spain relied more on Venice and Genoa than on Portugal, for the latter had hired Italian experts, and then attained an empire, cause and effect. Italians are why the caravel exists, not really Portugal. Not so much. Italians discovered Cape Verde and Guinea. Antonio Uso di Mare was Genoese, and he worked with Alvise Gadamosto, who was probably Venetian. They discovered the Cape Verde Islands and the coast of Guinea in Western Africa, of course. Mamma mia, it's a Cape Verde and a Guinea costa. Some Korean racist said, oh, by the way, Koreans, what did you have compared to the Spanish Empire? Did you even have an empire? Your nation is pathetic compared to the Spanish Empire. You said Spaniards are Africans. You have consistent. Russians are Mongolians. Brits are barbarians and Italians. Greeks are Turks. Italians are Africans and Germanic barbarians. Koreans are Mongols and Chinese and Japanese and the US who raped Korean women. El emperador español dijo esto. The Spanish emperor said, I speak Latin with God, Spanish with the troops, French with the ladies, Italian with the musicians, German with my lackeys, and English with my horses and dogs. That's right, English. You're not so great compared to cool German, nice Italian, romantic French, and cool and romantic Spanish. Cool in the context of conquistadores. Obama bin Laden said that Spanish isn't a superior language because he doesn't understand it. What a narcissist. What a narcissist. The world revolves around him. If he doesn't know your language, it must be useless. Brits enjoy chocolate thanks to Spain. Spain discovered and spread the Mesoamerican treasure. Fish and chips are thanks to Spain. Spain conquered the Andes and spread potatoes. Here are the things the British did, which I love. Rareware, video games. Age of Empires, video games. I created this map with London so that Spain could destroy it. Watch this clip of me doing just that.